Welcome to the RA Summer Training module on incident reports. In this module, we'll cover the importance of documenting and writing incident reports, when it's important for you to document these things, specifically how to create and submit an incident report, or an IR as we call them, and we'll also cover the expectations for writing IRs. Documenting and completing incident reports is really important to the work that we do for a number of reasons. It really helps us to do our due diligence and cover all of our bases in a very thorough way when we're dealing with important resident issues. It also allows us, when we have things documented, to better hold residents accountable for their actions and the impact that they've had on their community. Documenting and completing IRs is also important because incidents can be complex and have many moving parts involving many different students and several different issues. So if we didn't have a thorough documentation system for that, it would be hard for us as a staff to keep information straight that would help us best support and advise students. Documenting thoroughly also aids in communication with campus partners, advisors, parents, or anybody who really is in a position to need to know information about an incident that happens within residential life. Also, for legal reasons, it's important to document. Sometimes a case will be tied to the legal system outside of res life, so it's critical that we have very thorough information to share if that kind of a situation occurs. And finally, documenting through our IR system allows our residential life staff to communicate really thoroughly within our department as we work to help support and develop students. In terms of when you will want to document, there are a number of different reasons and different kinds of incidences in which you would find yourself in a position where it's necessary to document the issue in a formal kind of way. One is really for any kind of policy violation that you interact with the resident on. So whether that is alcohol and drugs, excessive violation of quiet hours, sexual harassment or sexual assault, anything having to do with discrimination or weapons will be something you would want to document. Also, any mental health concerns that you have with your residents, it's really important that we document those as well. Anything having to do with resident conflict, whether that is between roommates, excessive shouting in the hall, any physical altercation, any form of violence really at all, any of those kinds of things we need to make sure that we have documented. Also, occasionally you might have to document a facilities emergency. For example, if your floor were to flood, you would want to document something that was going to result in a lot of follow-up and a lot of repair. And then also something you might not deal with as much in a direct sense, but it might come across your radar is academic integrity. So for example, if you find out or you have some pretty conclusive information that a resident has cheated or been dishonest in an academic context, you'll want to document that. It's also common for you to come across incidences where you might not be entirely sure whether or not you should document it or not. If you're in that situation, always err on the side of caution and go ahead and document it. And you can always ask your RCD too for feedback on whether or not it's a situation that does need to be documented. Now that you've learned why it's important for us to document incidents, we'll now go over how you create this documentation through our online system, which is called Advocate. To access Advocate, first go to the Residential Life homepage, which is http://reslife.worcester.edu. From there, you'll scroll over the Staff menu option towards the top of the page, and then you will select RA Online. This will take you to the RA Online login page. In the username bar, you will enter RAWORLD, or RA World, in all lowercase. In the password bar, you will enter GOBEARS, or Go Bears, also all in lowercase. Once you've entered this login information, click the Login button. This will take you to the home page of the RA website. From here, you will scroll down and click the box on the left side of the screen that has Advocate Incident Reports inside of it. You will then be prompted to enter your Worcester Key ID and Worcester Key password. And once you've done that, you will click the Login button on the right. At this point, you will arrive at the Advocate homepage. To create an IR from here, click on the green Create Incident Report button, which will take you to the IR template. Please note that all steps from here are listed in the order in which they appear in an IR template. Once you're in the template, the first step will be to select whether or not EST was called. For this example, I'm going to select yes. Next, you will select the date that the incident occurred. I am selecting April 21st, 2014. Following the date, you will select the time the incident occurred. I am choosing 7 p.m. Now you're ready to move down the page and give information on the location of the incident. When you select this drop-down menu, you will be able to select from academic, residential life, and student services spaces on campus. Most of the time you will be filling out reports that occurred in residential life spaces. For this, notice and keep in mind that the main drop-down menu lists whole residential colleges and communities, not individual buildings within those communities. For example, here I am pointing out Heitzman-Hurd-Myers Residential College. Note that HIG is denoted as Heitzman-Hurd-Myers Residential College and JKL is denoted as Shanling-Doughton-Rutledge Residential College. Once you've selected the residential college or community where the incident occurred, then, as you see here, you'll have the option of selecting an individual building. In this case, I am selecting Hurd. Next, if applicable, you'll select the room in the residence hall where the incident occurred. In this example, I am going to select room 0111. I want to pause here and point out that sometimes you'll have to write an IR for an incident that occurred either off campus, on campus but outside of a campus building, or in a residence hall but not in a residence room. And there is a way to document all of these in your IR. From the Other Locations section, you can select either on campus or off campus. And from the Location Details section, you can choose from many different location and space descriptors. For this example though, I am filling out the IR as if it happened in a residence room. So notice that the room 0111 that I selected for Hurd is in the IR, and there is no info listed for Other Location or Location Detail. Next, it's time to select the WU student subject involved. The name or names that belong here are students immediately involved with the incident, and all you need to do to input their name is type the student's last name, put a comma, and then their first name, and you will see their name populate. Once the correct name populates, click on it and you'll see it appear in the box immediately below the search bar. Something very important to pay attention to is the residential college or community that appears next to the student's name. Sometimes we will have more than one student with the same name in our system. To make sure an IR is assigned to the correct student, make sure you know the student's place of residence when entering their name, and make sure that that place of residence appears next to their name. In this example, I am choosing Greg Opara, who is a resident of Thomas Eliot House, so this information is correct. Next, if there are any witnesses to the incident who are not immediately involved in or responsible for the incident, you will enter their name or names in the WU Student Witness section, which is immediately below the WU Student Subject Involved section. You'll then follow the same steps for the WU Student Complainant section, which is immediately below the WU Student Witness section. A complainant would be any student who is bringing any harmful aspects of the incident to your attention. If there are other students involved that meet none of the above criteria, then please put as much of their information as possible in the Other Involved Individual section. Ideally, this information will include name, campus address, student ID number, student phone number, and whether or not the student is under 21. Finally, there is a space for you to list the approximate number of others involved in the incident in the approximate number of others involved box. This is typically used when you're documenting an incident involving a large number of students in which it may not be practical or possible to document the names of every student at the scene of the incident. A specific example of this would be breaking up a large party in a residence hall, suite, or common space. After you've filled out all information on students involved in the incident, you will answer yes or no to a series of other important questions on the details of the incident. Once you've answered these questions, it's time for you to write your report in the incident description section. The next part of this module will detail specific expectations for how to effectively write these reports. What I will cover now, though, is that it's always best to first write your report in a Word document. That way you can ensure that correct grammar and spelling are checked. Doing this will also allow you to ensure your report is saved as you're typing it. Typing your report in Advocate is also risky because if you time out of the site or it experiences a technical glitch, you'll lose your written work. Once you've copied and pasted your report, it will look like this in the incident description box. Your last step before submitting will be to mark whether or not the IR is sensitive. I have marked no, and this is what you will mark when filling out your IRs. And at this point, your IR is ready to submit. Just click the Submit button in the bottom left part of the screen and you're good to go. Alright, so now with that super fascinating information covered, it's important for us also to look at the specific expectations that we have for you when you write the incident report that will go in the larger report that we just covered. So a few things to keep in mind. First of all, in terms of timetable, it's really important that whenever you come across an incident that you have that documented through the Advocate system and submitted by 8 a.m. the day after the incident. If you get it in before then, great, but the final deadline is always 8 a.m. the day after the incident occurs. Also make sure in your writing that you really focus on being concise and only including information and facts that are relevant to the incident. Things like who was there and present, the nature of the violation, if there's alcohol or drugs involved, how much of that was involved. You'll want to highlight if the resident was cooperative in a situation, all those things that really help to paint a picture in a very relevant sort of way in terms of what went on. You'll want to make sure that's in the incident report. Less relevant things such as what color shirt somebody was wearing or what you perhaps had for dinner before the incident, not super relevant. Also make sure to write all documentation in the third person, including when you are talking about yourself. Also, when you're highlighting different people that are involved in an incident, make sure you're really highlighting what those people do and what their capacity is in that situation. So for example, make sure that you're highlighting who the RCD is, who the RA is, who the residents are by putting RCD, RA, resident before their names. Also make sure that when you address somebody in an IR, the first time you do that, go ahead and put their title followed by their first and last name, but after that you can just go to their title followed by their last name. Also make sure when you're documenting that your writing is very objective. The purpose of IRs is for us to state the facts and really what happened in the incident in that moment. So things like opinions, prior interactions with the residents that have nothing to do with that incident, those kinds of things you won't want to include in an IR. If you have follow-up questions or thoughts or opinions, those are really important, and those are essential context pieces. But it's important for you to have those conversations and that communication with your RCD directly. So just make sure you're focusing on putting only the essential facts for the incident in the IR. So that is all we've got for incident reports. Thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all in August.